Hello and welcome to the Non-Perfect Parents Club podcast. I'm Emma, a mama of 2 girls, an ex-nursery practitioner and the creator of the Non-Perfect Parents Club. The Non-Perfect Parents Club is all about support, honesty, truths, acknowledging that none of us can be perfect parents because it's impossible, and basically just speaking the unspoken. The only rule here is no judgment allowed. I love hearing people's stories. I love finding out about other parents, their family dynamics, their values and how they tick. So that is what this podcast is going to be. Some great honest conversations about parenting, hopefully delving into some nitty-gritty thoughts and feelings that will make us all laugh, cry and sigh a big sigh of relief. Hello and welcome back to the Non-Perfect Parents Club podcast. Today I'm joined by Ruby. Hi Ruby, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me. So if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your family dynamic and any heritage.
Hi, I'm Ruby. I'm an artist and zine maker. My business is called Delightful. I have 3 sons. They are 25, 26 and 29. And I live with my partner, and I was a single mum for 8 years before I met my partner. In a domestic violent relationship before that, which was quite difficult with 3 little ones. I was a teen mum, so I was pregnant when I was 17, had him when I was 18, so it was quite an experience.
The main rule of the Non-Perfect Parents Club is no judgment allowed. Have you ever felt judged in your parenting, and can you tell us about it?
Oh gosh, yes. So my eldest one, he was 2 and he had the MMR vaccines, and the day after he started bashing his head against the fridge, screaming. So I took him back to the doctor, explained what was happening, there was something wrong with him and stuff, and they said no, he was fine, he was just tired or whatever it was. And I kept going back and saying he's different. He's not like a light. Before he was all cheerful and, happy. And then after that he wasn't. It was like he wasn't in his own body. And this went on for years. So I had to go to parenting classes because they said it was me. I had to go on courses, how to be a better parent. And it was awful. It was with people that were criminals or people that kids had been in care and stuff, and I thought, I'm not like any of these people and it's not me. But because he was so happy in himself, like if you talk to him he'd smile, so they'd always say, oh, he's got a nice smile, and as he got older, oh, he's so polite, and it's like, but he does things like set fire to furniture in the middle of the night, or he has proper massive meltdowns. Being young and stuff, I didn't have a clue about anything.
Say, do you think some of that judgment was because you were a young mum?
Yeah, definitely, I was. And because the police used to come to our house a lot because of their dad being violent, I think there was already a thing of, it's because of that. It's not actually because there was an issue. And it wasn't until he was 15 and he set fire to a park in front of a fireman, which is ridiculous. And the fireman and policeman brought him back to our house and said, there's something not right with this lad. Like, even dodgy people don't on purpose set fire in front of a fireman. And I was like, I've been saying this for years. So they both wrote a statement out that I could take to the doctor, and he finally got seen by the psychologist, and I think it was a psychiatrist as well, maybe. And they said that he was autistic, and that's what it was the whole of his life. But it was awful. So I was judged loads.
And in terms of your relationship, so was that already violent when you had the children, like before you had the children?
No, not at all, no. So when I got with him when I was 16, and then we had James when I was 18, and then he was fine. He's really nice. And then I got pregnant with Adam, and he was fine. And I don't remember anything around that time, like, I can't even remember being pregnant with Adam, so nothing must have happened. And then after having Adam, I found out that he'd been trying it on with all my friends while I was in the hospital. And then it was after that everything started changing, and he started becoming violent, and life was horrible. And then 3 months after having Adam, he raped me, and that's how I got pregnant with Chris. And after that, it just got worse and worse. And then one day, so my background is my mum and dad's relationship was violent. My dad was violent with my mum.
Right.
I didn't know a different thing, so to me it was normal.
Yeah.
I told my mum what was happening, and she was like, "It's your fault. You talk too much. You don't have his tea ready. All them cliched things."
Yeah.
And I said to my dad, he took me to the hospital when I was for antenatal, and I said, "Dad, I really need your help. He's hitting me. He's doing all this stuff to me." And he said, "Well, it's none of my business." And he wouldn't help. So in that situation, I felt like I had nobody to talk to.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ask a professional because all my experience with professionals, I'd been let down by them. Yeah. So I wouldn't turn to anyone. And any friends I had were all in violent relationships too. Yeah. So it just seemed normal. So, but what changed it was, he came home one day, James was 5 at the time, and he ran up to him, Daddy, you're home. And he had steel toe cap work boots on, and he kicked him. And something in my head snapped. And it was almost like, for the first time in all them years, I could see this isn't it. And that's how I got the police to come and take him away. And that was how we ended up splitting up. Right. It's like my mum instinct kicked in. Yeah. Do you know? Yeah. Do stuff to me, it's not right, but do stuff to me, but do it to the kids, it's not happening.
And so how did that, once you'd split up, how was that relationship then? Because obviously you've still got the kids together. Yeah. Was that still quite,
It was difficult because, so I was brought up a Christian, really in a strict Christian household, so I've never really done anything, so me getting pregnant was a massive shock. But being with him from I was 16 till in my mid-20s, I'd not gone out, I'd not done anything. So I started getting new friends, going out drinking, taking drugs, partying. I was always having parties at my house and stuff. He carried on being like he was. Right. So there was this conflict of I was living a life and he was the same, but in a worse predicament now because he didn't have his family. So every other weekend he'd take the kids, and then every other weekend I'd have them. And they started coming home really upset and like sad and saying, "Oh, Daddy's done this and Daddy's done that." And trying to talk to him, there was no co-parenting going on. And at the time I was on benefits, I was like really skint on benefits. And I'd asked him for shoes for James for school, because he worked a full-time job, because he didn't give any money for the kids. There was no, what's it called, where they give you money,
Oh yeah.
I can't remember the name of it. That wasn't there anyway. And he said, "I've got no money." And then he turned up in a brand new sports car. So I took a baseball bat to it. So it was like, that was kind of the dynamic, do you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, when I say it now, I think, well, what on earth? But back then, all them years ago. Anyway, so I had a new boyfriend, and the kids had said to him, "Please don't make us go with Daddy." And he says, "You've got to go, it's your daddy's time, you go and have a nice time at the weekend." And he said, "He hits us. If we get out of bed, he hits us." So he said to him, "If Daddy hits you today, you say to him that," he was called Craig, "Craigie will come and punch him in the face." I went, "You can't say that." Anyway, so within half an hour I get a phone call. "How dare your boyfriend threaten me?" I said, "Have you hit the kids?" "It doesn't matter." I said, "No, have you hit the kids?" So from then on we went to solicitors. He had to have supervised access. He never turned up. And then we got a letter from his solicitor saying, "I don't want anything to do with the children ever again. I've burnt all the toys. You can tell them that." That's in this letter. I've got rid of all the stuff. I was just like... So I kept all of them letters because I thought when they get older they might say, "Why didn't you let us see him?" Or... And then when James was 11, he come home one day crying his eyes out. He'd seen his dad, and his dad had tried to drag him in the car and take him. And then nothing. And then when he was 15, he turned up on the door and said, "I want to see James. I'm not interested in the other two. I just want to see him." And James really wanted to see him. And I said, "Okay, you can go for an hour, but you make sure you come back." And then it was 2 hours, and it increased bit by bit because I didn't trust him. Yeah. And then the first time he'd stayed, I think, all day. James come back and he was like, "You still here?" And I was like, "Where would I be?" And he said, "Daddy said that you'd have ran off. You'd have took my brothers and ran off because you never wanted me." And I was like, after all them years, he was still messing with his head. And because of James's autism, he takes anything that anybody says as the truth. You know, he hasn't got that filter of thinking, hang on, this is a manipulation. He just, so then that was that. So he's never seen the younger two. He's never been interested in them. And James went to stay with him when he was 18 for a month, and they ended up fighting with each other, punching each other, and he's never seen him since. So it was really difficult, but in a way, I'm glad that I didn't have to co-parent with him all them years. It'd have been awful. It was better being a single mum, I think.
And did you find that hard as a single mum?
I found it hard being a mum and being me. I wanted my own life. I wanted to do my own things. I had a whole plan of going to London and doing fashion, and then because I'd got pregnant I couldn't do that. I felt like my life had been taken away in some ways, and I was still trying to live a single woman life with 3 kids. And you know, a lot of the time I judge myself and I feel guilty for some of the choices I made, but I tried my best with the knowledge and support that I had at the time, you know, and that's all you can do, I think.
How do you feel about parenting? Good, bad? Has it changed you? Do you have any regrets? I know we've kind of touched on that slightly. But...
I always wanted to be a mum. But I didn't think I'd be a mum that young. But now I'm glad that I was a mum when I was young, because now I'm 47 and I'm not free as a bird, because they've got their own special things, you know, as grown-ups. They don't just go off. But I feel like I can do all the things now that I didn't do, and now I'm mature and make better choices. I don't have any regrets, because I think even though I've been through some hideous things, it shapes you to who you are now. So if I hadn't have done all them things, I wouldn't be me, and I like me now. So I don't regret anything. The other thing that I think is, so when I got with Tom 17 years ago, I really wanted a baby with him, because I thought it'd be different. It'd be a different dynamic, but it never happened. So sometimes I think, oh, that'd have been nice. But apart from that, I don't really regret anything. But it has shaped me, and it has changed me, because I've seen through the kids' eyes the magic in the world again, where I'd lost it a little bit. So that, I think that's amazing.
And how was your kind of relationship or dynamic with your mum and dad after you realised, you know, you said about seeing your relationship with the boy's dad for what it was? How was did that change your dynamic with your mum and dad at all, or the relationship, or?
Well, so my dad and mum got divorced when I was 7. Before that, I thought my dad was incredible and amazing. He was like, everything was good. I didn't know we were poor. I didn't know that there was trouble, because everybody at school was the same. So it's like you didn't know anything, and I wasn't allowed out of the garden gate to see other kids or play with other kids, because we were Christian and they wasn't. So I didn't know a different thing. And then it wasn't till I was probably in my late 30s when I started doing work on myself and my ancestral path. So my mum was adopted when she was a baby. My dad's mum killed herself, and he found her when he was 5. And he went to live in a home with nuns, and all his brothers and sisters got split up all over the country in different homes and stuff. So there was no roots. We didn't have any roots. So I started doing our family tree. By this point, both my parents had died. And I found that there was... So we've got a massive family all over, and that made me feel like I had some kind of stability and roots. But it made me see my parents as both wounded people that had come together trying to make something work, and they were just, I kept thinking of them as little children. How would they be as little children? And they'd have both been so hurt and upset and sad, and as adults they'd not done any work on themselves to change that. So then they're trying to get together and make this thing work, and it was never going to work, ever. So I feel like, I just feel sorry for them, really.
Yeah.
That was their experience. And I don't feel, I didn't have a bad childhood. I had an amazing childhood. You know, they did the best that they could. Yeah. The same as what I've done, and a lot of that has shaped how I parented my kids. The way my mum was with me. I've gone off on a tangent now. I can't remember the question.
I was just asking if it changed, if your dynamic or relationship with your mum and dad had changed when you saw your relationship with the boy's dad for what it was.
So I saw my dad once a week because he lived away at that point, and I was angry with him, really angry with him that he didn't help me. And I went off him. I didn't like him really very much anymore, and I saw the way that he was with my children in a different light, like he was very short-tempered with them and stuff. And then my mum, she took the dad's side. She loved him. She thought he was amazing. She was really angry that I'd got the police to take him off. She was really cross, and then she kept trying to come, and she favoured James over the others, and she blamed me for his autism. She didn't have a clue what it was or anything. So my bad parenting, as it were, is why he was like he was. And when he went to stay with my mum, he was very different because she had rules and strict things, and he liked that because that's what he needed. I didn't. I was like a carefree parent, you know. One day we'll go here, one day we'll go there. So he didn't fit well in that. I didn't know that at the time. So our relationship fractured quite a lot, especially when I started taking drugs and drinking, and you know, she's never done anything like that. So she was really disappointed in me. And I was just like, oh, whatever. But now I'm older, I think, oh, I really wish she could see me now. I wish she could see that that was just a little brief period, and now everything's really good, you know. So, it did change.
Again, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but is there anything in your life that has shaped how you parent that you're happy to talk about? Are there any situations or circumstances that have affected this?
So I think I've really changed in the past couple of years. A couple of years ago I got a new friend, and we talk over WhatsApp because she lives down south, and she kept saying, you know that you're autistic, don't you? And I was like, no, I'm not. Pack it in. I'm definitely not. I'm nothing like James. And she was like, you definitely are. So I said, right, to shut you up, I'm going to take the tests. So I did these tests, because she said that people don't say the stuff that I say. And I'm like, yeah, they do. And she was like, they don't. So I did these tests, autism, ADHD, and there was other ones on there. So you filled out all the forms and everything. Anyway, it came back that... I'm ADHD. I've got sensory processing disorder, which makes so much sense to me now, which is very similar to autistic traits, which is, I think, why she thought that that was that. And also dyscalculia, which I never knew. I've always struggled with maths, but I just thought I was useless. So then I started on a really deep rabbit hole of all this stuff, and like, how have I coped for all these years with these things? And I felt guilt and like grieving, like my life could be so different. And there was a point where I thought, no matter how many courses I do, no matter how many things I put in place, it's never going to be different. I kept trying to, all these years, I kept trying to trick myself. The kids used to laugh at me. Oh, here she is, another plan. Right, we've got a plan now. How long's this plan going to last? I'd have them stuck on the fridge. Right, kids, we're going to get up every day and this is what we're going to do. And they'd be like, yeah, Mum, yeah. Because they just knew it wouldn't. Anyway, interestingly, so James is my eldest and Chris is the youngest. And Chris has got mental health issues. Adam hasn't. And when I told them about my test results, James and Chris both went, oh yeah, what are you sharks? We're not. And I was like, what? And Adam was in complete denial.
Right.
He's like, there's nothing. No, you're not. You're definitely not. And I think it's because he's grown up with two brothers. None of them get on with each other.
Right.
Two brothers that have got deep issues, and he doesn't want somebody else in his family to have more issues.
Right.
And it's been interesting talking to Tom, because Tom was in denial as well. He was like, no, that's just you, doesn't? And then he saw all the questions and answers, and he was like, oh yeah, you do that. Oh yeah, oh. And I said, you take the test then. If you think it's not right, you do it. And he did it, and he got such a low score on everything. So it showed that it's not, Anyway, so since then, I've treated James and Chris so differently, because now I understand that all these weird quirks, that's what they have. So when I used to think, well, Chris is just being rude to me, going, don't make small talk with me, I'm not interested, I'd take that as a deep offence. But now I realise why he's not interested. So that has changed me. But I so wish I'd have known all them years ago, because I'd have treated him completely different. James and I have had a really good talk about a year ago, and I said, I'm so sorry, James, for the way that I treated you, because I didn't know what to do. And he said, Mum, I was an arse as well. Just because I'm autistic, I was also that, It wasn't just that. So we've really come together now, and our relationship's much better, which is good.
That was something I was going to ask, is obviously now they're older, what's your relationship like with all of them?
So with James, it's good. He lives in sheltered accommodation in Chorley, because he can't live on his own. And we're looking to see if there's somewhere here that he can move to, because I think he feels out of it, really. So that's good. We see him very sporadically. If we're together too long, we start grating on each other. Because in my head, I always think he's capable of much more than he is. And when he isn't doing stuff, I just think, why are you being lazy? Even though I'm the same, So we see him sporadically. Adam moved to Lancaster, but on Saturday he's moving to Barrow, because he's got a new girlfriend, and they're moving in together. I don't ever have to think about him or worry about him. Everything's just fine, Our relationship's weird, because we get on really well, but since my diagnosis, I've realised how many things he says to me actually that are normal things. This is really hard to describe, but if I've been to town and I'm completely overwhelmed by all the sights, sounds, smells, everything, when I get home, every time, I'm really hot, I'm really sweaty, I really need to take all my clothes off, get in the shower, get a cup of tea and just sit there, just for a bit, just to calm down. Whereas Adam doesn't experience that. He just goes to town and comes home, and we don't. So there's that mismatch of understanding. So on a surface level, we get on really well. He's great company to go out with, because he loves nature and adventures. We have a great relationship on a, it sounds horrible saying a surface level, but not in a deep way, if that makes sense. And Chris, it's just awful. He lives at home with us. He goes to uni 1 day a week, and the rest of the time he doesn't go out anywhere. And he blames me for everything. I think he blames me because he doesn't have a life. This is his words, he doesn't have a life. He's also transgender, so he's got a lot of mental stuff around that. And every time I've tried to get him help in mental health services, they've been useless. And so he's got no respect or no faith in them that anybody can help him. And it's really terrible, and we don't get on at all. We did when he was younger. He was like, this is awful, but I'm just going to say it. He was like my favourite because he was so much fun to be with. And I spent a lot of time with him, and we got on really well. And then he became a teenager, and it all changed. And he hates me when I'm on my moon time. He doesn't speak to me if I'm on my period at all. I think that's because he's never going to experience them. There's loads of stuff. Him and Tom this week have been building a computer together, and I could hear him in the other room chatting away to Tom about it. And then I went in, and Tom had gone upstairs for something, and I said, "How are you getting on then, love?" That's what I said. "How are you getting on, love? Do not call me love, and it doesn't matter." And I'm like, and 1 minute ago you was really lovely to Tom chatting, but you can't do that with me, and it does break my heart.
I was going to say, is that hard?
Really hard. I went off and I just cried because I just thought, I've not actually done anything. He blames me for not having two parents. He blames me that he was a child from coming out in certain circumstances, you know, as he did. And the only reason he knows about that is because he said he'd seen something on somebody's podcast a couple of years ago, and I was mortified because I didn't think he looked at anything that I did because he's not interested. So we had to have a massive discussion about that. And I said, "But I chose to keep you. I chose you. You know, I didn't choose how you came about, but I chose to keep you." And I can understand how horrible that is for him. But yeah, it's awful.
Yeah. And how does it make you, like, how do you feel as a mum that with you saying that they don't get on with each other?
Oh, it's so annoying. It just really annoys. This year's the first year where I've thought, I was talking to a friend about Christmas, and I said, it's awful because they'll sit together.
Right.
So James wants to be friends with everyone, but because he was such an awkward person through his autism when he was younger, the other two don't like him. So Adam will tolerate him.
Right.
But after a bit, he's had enough, which I can understand. Chris hates both of them because they're both doing their own thing, and he says, "Oh, Adam's a golden boy because he's got a girlfriend, he lives in his own house, this, that and the other. You do all this stuff for Adam." I haven't. Adam's done it all himself. And it's so hard. So Chris only eats upstairs, he won't eat with us. All this stuff. So I was talking to a friend and I said, "I've realised I want a middle class Christmas. I want a Christmas like what's on the telly, on films. That's what I want." Never happens. Why do I put myself through it every year thinking we're going to have a middle class Christmas? We don't ever have one. So I said to each of them individually, "How do you want your Christmas to be?" And they all said, "I just want nice food and I just want to watch movies." Chris said, "I want to be on my own." And before, I'd have took great offence at that. And I said, "All I want is nice food and a small amount of time together, and then I want to go and sit on my bed," do you know? So we all had our own ideas, and that's what we did, and we had a lovely Christmas. Adam's girlfriend's from Russia. She's a teacher over here. She teaches kids with special needs, and she was amazing with James, so patient with him. And we played games, and we had Christmas dinner. Chris didn't eat with us, he stayed upstairs. Everybody was happy. And it was the first time in all them years that they haven't got on, but they were civil to each other. And it was like, oh, thank God for that. But, so I've come to a conclusion now that I'm just not going to have that. I'm not going to have
more
it.
Accepting of the situation. What's your biggest value when it comes to parenting?
So do you mean the values that I instill into the children? What I wanted to instill into them?
Yeah, I guess your biggest value as a parent, so however that, whether what you instill into them or just what something you do, or...
I think my thing was always to make them respect and treat nature properly. That was my biggest value, the connection to nature, because I think when you're connected to nature, you're connected to everything. Litter was a massive one. You don't ever drop litter. This is a really stupid one, but always saying your teas. So if you say water, you've got to say water.
Probably been cringing at me. I'm really bad for that.
Oh, I have not noticed. I haven't noticed. So I'd be like, you have to say your teas. So that was, I mean, it's ridiculous, but that was a thing that I used to like really instill. But nature's my biggest thing, I think. Having that curiosity.
Yeah. And so what did you, because obviously from the little bit that I know about you, what did you do to kind of instill that?
So we turned our backyard, and it was a yard in the middle of a town, we turned it into like the good life. So we had allotment, things that we built. We had chickens in there from being little 1 day old and stuff. So they grew stuff, they knew where stuff came from. I home educated the two youngest ones.
Did you?
I took them out of school when they were 7 and 8.
Right.
So for home education, it was learning where your food comes from, you know, how far it's travelled, all that kind of stuff. How to use herbs as herbal remedies and natural remedies, what you do with animals, and you know how you look after them, all that kind of stuff. We had an allotment as well, so they did beekeeping. Just anything like that. And their school work, we'll loosely say that, was all based around hands-on learning. So how to bake, how to change a washer on a tap, you know, how to fix a washing machine if it breaks, all the things that you need really, alongside a basic thing of English and maths and stuff. But it was all hands-on connection to nature.
And do you see much of that in their lives now?
Definitely with Adam. Like with Adam, he's quite connected. Like he loves to be out exploring all the time. Chris not so much, but in his food he's very he's gone quite extreme actually lately in what he'll eat and what he won't eat. But I think that's to do more with his testosterone and stuff. James not so much, but he's always cared for animals and he's always cared for little kids. He's always been like that. But I think because he lives in the middle of Chorley, there's not much thing for that, you know, with him.
Yeah. What has been your biggest challenge so far?
As a parent, understanding that they're all really different. And this is an awareness now as a reflection that the time you have with them is so short, and the trouble is when you're in it, it's so hectic that you don't appreciate the things. So you think it's going to go on forever, and it just doesn't. It's gone before you know it. And in my head, I thought they'd get to 18 and then that'd be it. Off they go, and I'd be free, and that isn't it at all.
It doesn't work like that, does it?
Not at all. There's always something, a new level of something. What was the question again? Sorry.
Your biggest challenge.
Oh, my biggest challenge. So my biggest challenge is that they're not me. That's my biggest challenge. They're not me, and they've got their own individual needs and their own individual journeys. And no matter what I think they should be doing, they're going to do their own thing.
That's something it's never really mentioned to you, like before you become a parent, or it's never really talked about, is it? And that's something that's so hard to kind of acknowledge and accept as a parent.
It is, because it's like you've been put with all these little random strangers. And you've got to figure them all out. Yeah, you've got to work it all out. But while you're working it out, you've got to look after them at the same time and look after yourself. And it's like, hang on a minute here. What are you doing? You're really odd. You don't fit into these other people. Like, it's,
And that's it. And once you've had one, you're getting to know them and stuff, and then you just expect another one to be the same, and they're not, are they? They're completely different. And you know, even though you might be raising them the same or doing the same stuff, they're a different individual person. And then no one kind of tells you, well, you figure out this one, but then you might have to change tact with this one and do something different, but while you're still doing the other thing with the other one. And it's like, oh my goodness, like, And like you say, how do you do all that and then look after yourself and keep a house and if you've got to work and
a relationship going with your partner and it is really tricky. And my other little bit of advice is, if you're going to have children, have them in equal numbers. I found having 1 and 2 was great. As soon as I had 3, it was weird, because whenever you go out to somewhere, it's everything's served in 4s or 6s, and there's always this odd one out, or when one wants to sit next to you and the other one does, and then you've got a random one. Where are you going to sit? You know, it's like, but if there was 4, they could pair up together. So I found that really, don't ever have 3, have 2 or 4.
Last question. What do you wish you could change about parenting in general, as in for everyone?
I think that I wish I could change that mums could be honest with each other, and that you don't have to. Everybody parents differently, and it's all right, but we've all got loads of things that are in common, that are struggles, in common struggles. And as women in general, even not as parents but as women, it's like we have to pretend that everything's all right. And even if somebody says to you, how are you? And you go, oh yeah, I'm fine, but you're not. You know, and if more women were honest and said, like, I remember going to playgroup when they were little, and you could see people struggling, and I was struggling. I had postnatal depression, but you wouldn't openly say, look, I'm really struggling today. You know, there's some things that I've done as a parent that I still now feel dreadful for. When Chris never slept through the night, and one morning I'd woke up and he was screaming, and I picked him up to throw him across the room when I was still in bed. And my partner grabbed hold of him. He went, what are you doing? And I went, oh, I don't know. I just wanted him to stop crying. And in that instant, I didn't know that was a child in my hands. Do you know what I mean? But if I'd have said to my health visitor at the time, this is what I'd done, there'd have been loads of things in, you know, oh, this is, you're a dangerous mum, this, that and the other. No, it wasn't that. No, I just needed some help. I was so exhausted.
And that is, I find, that is the thing with so many mums. They just need some help.
Just a little bit of something. Because it's knackering being a parent, especially when they're little. So if we could all just be honest and I love what you do, because it's not about judging each other. But you know, if I'd have said that in playgroup and said, this morning I nearly threw him across the room because I just wanted him to stop crying, they'd have been horrified. But there could have then been another mum that thought, well, I've done something like that. But we don't speak up. No. So I think it's important to have these conversations, like unfiltered, but not feel, if I say this, I'm going to be deemed as a bad person.
Is there anything else you want to add before we finish?
Just that, with hindsight, and a lot of old ladies, a lot of old ladies say this, if you've got little ones, all the things that you think matter don't actually matter. It doesn't matter if your house is spotless. It doesn't matter if you've got makeup on and you look put together. It matters that you spend time with your kids doing the things that you and they really enjoy. Because at some point they're going to be older, and you can, if you want, you can have a spotless house then. And it doesn't matter that you've not done the hoovering for a week, but if your kids are fed and they're happy, that's most important. Don't feel like you've got to be all things to everyone and look the part. I think it's actually being active in it.
I wish that is something that all mums would realise earlier on, because so many don't realise it until the children are grown up and they look back in hindsight. And that's something that I wish that not even just realise, because I think there's a lot of mums that do realise that, but they just can't quite change it, and they still feel like they've got to keep up appearances or be this quotation good mum by doing all that, and that isn't what makes you a good mum.
No, not at all. My house was spotless when my kids were little, because it was the only thing I could control. I couldn't control anything else in my life, but I could control the house looking spotless. So I thought, when the health visitor came or a friend had come, they'd go, oh, isn't she a good mum because the house is tidy? I wasn't. I was falling apart. My relationship was awful. I couldn't cope. I'd fall asleep at the drop of a hat because I was exhausted. But because it looked like I was doing a good job, people thought it. So it's not it at all. Just take that time to just say, oh, the other thing is, sorry.
No, you're right.
The other thing is, and this is a really big thing that I wish I could go back, when you're feeding your baby, if you're breastfeeding it's different, but if you're bottle feeding your baby, actually spend the time feeding the baby. Don't just like prop it up with a bottle or be on your phone while you're feeding the baby, because that feeding the baby thing, even though you think, oh, I can multitask here and stuff, that is very short, and once it's gone you really miss it. You really miss that closeness of this little magical creature that, do you know what I mean? So that, and I did it loads of times as well. Oh, while I'm feeding the baby I can just do this other thing, but now I wish I'd have just sat down and sleep. When your baby's asleep, just sleep. It doesn't matter that your house is a tip. Just have a kip.
No, sleep's more important than a lot of other things that we do when we could be.
Definitely.
Sleeping.
Yeah, not far.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please don't forget to follow, share with other parents you know, and if you haven't already, please leave a review on the app that you're listening on. A new episode is released every Monday. Follow or subscribe to be notified when each new episode goes live. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast, please get in touch via any of my social media channels, website or email. Thank you, Ruby, for joining me on today's episode. It's been great to have you, and thank you to everyone for listening.